All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the February 22nd, 2021 Sacramento County Planning Commission. We start with the roll call.
Yes, Commissioners Hom,
Here.
Martinson, Commissioner Martinson,
Maybe on mute.
Here.
thank you. Rathel,
Here.
Shelby,
Here.
and Commissioner Tatishi.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Okay, great. Start the opening statement.
In compliance with the directives of the County, State, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this meeting is live streamed and closed to the public. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be transferred from the queue into the meeting to make a verbal comment. Written comments are always accepted. Feel free to send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net, and your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record.
Okay, we can start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before I call the first item, should we swear in all the applicants and anyone who wants to?
Yes, sir, and I'll do that now. So applicants, we are going to get you sworn in, and if you'll just follow my vocal prompts. And so if you wish to address the commission, please ready your... I apologize. Let me see if we can get rid of the echo here. Okay, we're going to try it again here. So for the applicants for the three projects that will be presented tonight, if you'll follow my voice prompts, I will prompt you. So if you wish to address the commission, please ready yourselves to be sworn. So we ask that you raise your right hand, and the appropriate response is "I do." So do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this commission is the truth, so help you God? If you do not swear, do you so affirm? Applicant Lapidat, Miss Lapidat, do you so affirm, swear or so affirm? It looks like we have a couple of applicants and their mics are open, so I'm not quite sure what.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Scherer, do you swear or so affirm that the testimony you're about to give this commission is the truth, so help you God? If you do not swear, do you so affirm? Aaron Scherer, your microphone is unmuted, and we just need a yes or a no. I apologize, Chair Shelby. Let me check with DTEC. They're on board as well and see if we have, briefly, if there is some...
It's okay. I think we can get started.
Perfect.
We have to make sure that they do it before they give testimony.
Got it, sir. Thank you. And so for the first item, item number 1 is a special development permit and design review located approximately 250 feet west in the South Sacramento community. And it is for, it's a negative declaration. It's the Escaton Carmichael Parking Addition.
Thank you, Lydia. This is Meredith Halsworth, the project manager. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you very much. If you can go to the next slide, please. The request is for a special development permit to allow a parking lot to be developed within 25 feet of an adjoining residentially zoned property, as well as for the perimeter barrier to exceed 7 feet in height. This is within the Eschaton Special Planning Area, and the request includes a design review to comply with the Sacramento County design guidelines. Next slide, please. The project site is within the Eschaton Special Planning Area, which is that outlined in red parcel. It's surrounded by single family and multifamily residential, and the subject parcel encompasses the entire SPA boundary. Next slide. This is an aerial of the Eschaton SPA. The project site is located on the west side of Walnut Avenue. It's about 1,500 feet south of Cypress Avenue in the Carmichael community. This site is currently developed with the existing Eschaton Care Facility, and development of the new parking area is proposed at the southernmost portion of the site. Next slide. The site plan shows the proposed parking spaces. This is down along the southern property line, and the proposed perimeter barriers that would separate the parking from the neighboring residential properties. The barriers will reach a maximum of 10 feet in height in some stretches, which is a deviation that is included in the special development permit request. Next slide. This is the landscape plan that's illustrating the other requested deviation. The SPA requires a minimum of 25-foot landscape buffer between a residentially zoned property and a parking lot. And this project proposes a planter with a minimum width of 7 feet. Next slide. The proposed parking lot is intended to serve the adjoining Eschaton Assisted Living Facility and will add a total of 64 vehicle spaces, 4 golf cart spaces, and 2 motorcycle spaces. The 4 westernmost parking stalls will be covered with a metal carport and will be reserved for the golf cart parking. The landscape plan intends to incorporate 4 existing oak trees and several existing redwoods into the proposed landscaping. Next slide. The Carmichael CPAC met on January 15th in 2020 and recommended approval with a vote from all members present. The DRAC met on January 9th of 2020 and determined that the site design is within substantial compliance with the countywide design guidelines, and staff is recommending approval of the project with conditions. Next slide, please. Staff is recommending the following actions: to determine that the environmental analysis is adequate and complete and adopt the negative declaration, adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, to approve the special development permit subject to findings and conditions of approval, as well as find the project in substantial compliance with design guidelines subject to findings and conditions. And that concludes my staff presentation. I'm available for questions, and we do have the applicant on the line as well. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? Don't hear any. We can bring the applicant forward.
No, there are no public comments at this time.
No, the applicant forward.
Yes, the applicant is on board.
Yes, we have Aaron Scherer here with Eschaton, as well as Greg with Eschaton and Greg Ventura with Orin Engineering.
Okay, and you're okay with all the conditions of approval?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for the applicants? Any? We can. I think you said there's no public comments.
That's correct, sir. There are no public comments.
All right. Then we can close the public comment section, we can entertain a motion.
This is Commissioner Tatishi. I'll move a staff recommendation.
I'll second. This is Kara.
Thank you. Commissioners Hom,
Yes.
Martinson,
Yes.
Rathel,
Yes.
Tatishi,
Yes.
and Chair Shelby.
Yes.
And the motion passes with staff recommendations. And for item number 2 is a use permit design review located at 11300 Fair Oaks Boulevard, 500 feet south of Woodleaf Drive in the Fair Oaks community. And the environmental dock is a negative declaration. It's for the Eschaton Fair Oaks Parking Addition.
Good evening. This is Meredith Holsworth again. This is another Eschaton Parking Addition project, but this one is a little bit different. Next slide, please. In this instance, the request is for a use permit amendment. This will amend a use permit from 1981 to add 2 additional parcels that are north of the existing Fair Oaks Eschaton facility. Those would be added into the use permit description for the project site, and those would be utilized as parking for the facility. And the request includes a design review to comply with the countywide design guidelines. Next slide, please. So this is the project site. It is zoned RD5 and is surrounded on all sides by single-family residential. Next slide. This is an aerial of the project site. It includes the Eschaton facility on the south, and then the 2 parcels on the very north are the ones being proposed to be added via the use permit amendment description. The project site is at 3831. Oh, sorry, that's actually the wrong address, but it is, this is in the Fair Oaks community off Fair Oaks Boulevard. And as I mentioned, it is currently developed with the existing care facility. There is some existing parking there, and then this use permit amendment would propose additional parking on the vacant parcel. Next slide, please. So this site plan shows the proposed parking on the parcel that is currently vacant, as well as showing the existing parking in the white that is already there along Fair Oaks Boulevard. This kind of demonstrates nicely how the circulation will be improved as well by providing a circular vehicular movement rather than the tight, the narrow turnaround that was just back and forth. And as I said, the white spaces are the existing, and then the gray are what are proposed on the vacant parcel. And then this also connects internally to the south via an internal drive aisle as well. Next slide, please. And this is the proposed landscape plan. You can see the circulation there a little bit better. These are all the proposed plantings for the project, and hard to see in this exhibit, but there are some retained trees as well that are shown. Next slide, please. So 2 of the subject APNs are currently partially developed. One of them does have the parking lot for overflow parking for the Eschaton facility. The proposed expansion of the parking lot onto the vacant parcel would provide additional parking for the facility and would result in a net increase of 28 vehicle spaces and 2 motorcycle spaces. And as I mentioned on the site plan, it does improve that circulation for pedestrians and for cars. The property line bordering the residential properties to the east would be developed with a 7-foot masonry fence as well. Next slide, please. The Fair Oaks CPAC met and reviewed this project on March 4th and recommended approval by a 3-to-1 vote of the proposed project. The DRAC met on February 27th of 2020 and determined that the site design is in substantial compliance with the countywide design guidelines, and staff is recommending approval of this project with conditions. Next slide, please. As the final hearing body would be the board on this project, staff is recommending the following actions as recommendations to the board. And that would be to determine that the environmental analysis is adequate and adopt the negative declaration, as well as adopt the MMRP, approve the use permit amendment subject to findings and conditions, and find the project in substantial compliance with countywide design guidelines. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions on this as well.
Do we have questions for staff on the top?
Chair Shelby, I have a couple of questions for Meredith, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Meredith. Good evening. I do have a couple, two questions for you. In the CPAC comments, there was a comment to say request Escatón to remove the driveway from Village Estates Lane. I'm sort of lost on the comment. What drive is somebody talking about?
Sure. So there is actually in your attachments in the packet, there are a couple of maps there, including an aerial and a zoning map. And I've tried to label on there where that driveway is. It is kind of hard to see, but there is just an internal driveway basically connecting the vacant parcel to the neighborhood, to the street on the other side. And so they had just asked that that would be removed, and Escatón was more than happy to do that.
That's been removed. My last question is, there was I guess the neighbor expressed employees smoking in the parking lot. Was ever that addressed with Escatón on having, because I know between the buildings, there's designated smoking areas, but I don't recall if there's any code requirements in parking lots. So was that addressed?
So at the CPAC meeting, Escatón did take that comment to heart and mentioned that they would be adding no smoking signs out in the parking lot, and that they would be enforcing that all employees only smoke in their designated smoking areas. So
okay,
that,
fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, they addressed it, and the neighbors, I believe, were satisfied with that response.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, thanks. Any other questions for staff? All right. And we have another applicant here still.
Yes, the applicant is here. We have Aaron from Escatón, Stephen, who is the executive director at Escatón, and Greg Ventura, the engineer.
I have the same question. Are you okay with the use of approval for this item?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? I don't hear any. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Nope, there are no public comments.
Okay, we can entertain a motion.
Since I've been talking, I'll make the motion to accept staff recommendations.
All right, and I'll second that.
Go ahead.
And I apologize.
I'll second that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's Commissioner Shelby.
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Hahn with the motion, and I second it.
Perfect, thank you. And for the roll call vote, Commissioners Hahn? Martinson?
Yes.
Rathel?
Yes.
Tatishi?
Yes.
And Chair Shelby?
Yes.
And the motion passes. For item number 3, we have a use permit, special development permit and design review located at 7900 Hazel Avenue in the Orangevale community. It is a mitigated negative declaration for Prestige Senior Care.
Good evening, everyone. This is Kimber Gutierrez. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I will be presenting the Prestige Senior Care Project. The subject site is located on the west side of Hazel Avenue, approximately 400 feet north of Golden Gate Avenue in the Orangevale community, and is currently undeveloped. Surrounding land uses include existing rural residences to the north, east, and west, with an existing church to the south. Next slide, please. The site is currently zoned Agricultural Residential 2 and is designated AR2 by the Carmichael Community Plan, and Agricultural Residential by the Sacramento General Plan. The surrounding area is completely zoned AR2 as well. The proposed request before you tonight is a use permit, special development permit, and design review. The use permit is to allow a congregate care facility in the AR2 zone. The special development permit is to allow the proposed project to deviate from landscape screening and fencing development standards, which I will explain in more detail later on in the presentation, and design review to comply with countywide design guidelines. Next slide, please. Here's the proposed site plan. The proposed development would utilize and enhance the existing which currently involves a driveway on the northeast corner of the property and portion of an access road, which is utilized by the north adjacent property owner. The project proposes to expand this driveway to continue to serve the adjacent property to the north, as well as serve the proposed project. This results in the requested deviation from landscaping and fencing requirements. So instead of having the required 7-foot wide landscape planter and 6-foot wide or 6-foot tall solid wood fence or masonry wall, the applicant is proposing to not provide landscaping and to relocate the existing open agricultural fencing to accommodate the shared access. The driveway would also provide access to the parking area for the facility, the fire truck turnaround, and then maintaining the neighbor's existing access road. The proposed building would be approximately 16,000 square feet and would be situated on the eastern portion of the project facing Hazel Avenue. The facility would contain 15 resident bedrooms, 5 staff bedrooms, a kitchen, dining room, and a number of resident amenities. An outdoor courtyard is proposed in the middle of the building with an outdoor patio on the western side of the building and a covered porch along the northeastern corner. Besides the turnaround, the area behind the building would remain undeveloped. Next slide, please. Here are the front and right elevations. Next slide. And here are the rear and left elevations. Next slide, please. Here is the landscape plan. The proposed parking area would contain 14 standard parking stalls, 2 Americans with Disabilities Act stalls, and a drop-off area that will be covered by a portico attached to the main entrance of the building. The parking lot would be set back from Hazel 10 feet, and there would be a detached sidewalk, which would also contain some landscaping. The landscaping within the parking area is proposed to provide 53% shade coverage. The project will also be deviating from the 7-foot wide landscape planter requirement along the southern portion of the building. This is to accommodate the proposed drive access on the north side, as well as the proposed building. And a 6-foot tall solid fence will be provided along the south property line with a 6-foot tall masonry wall required along the portion shared with the parking lot. Next slide, please. So as I stated, the proposal is a 15-bedroom resident congregate care facility with 5 staff bedrooms. Staff has included conditions of approval to ensure the facility does not exceed 15 residents. So the facility would be required to have a maximum of 15 bedrooms with only 1 resident within each bedroom. As I stated, the 1 point of access to serve the development and the north adjacent neighbor, there is not currently a recorded easement for shared access. So if that was something that the applicant was going to pursue, which they are intending to pursue, we did include a condition to ensure that if that is the direction they want to go, that an easement is obtained and recorded for shared access prior to improvement plans. The special development permit to deviate from the solid wood fence or the masonry wall and the landscape planner requirements, we did add some conditions of approval to ensure the appropriate fencing and the landscaping is installed. And the final hearing authority is the Planning Commission with the Board of Supervisors as the appeal body for this project. Next slide, please. The project did undergo environmental review, so an initial study and mitigated negative declaration was prepared, as well as a mitigation monitoring and reporting plan. It was released for public review on December 8th of 2020. Impacts discussed included transportation and traffic, air quality, hydrology and water quality, biological resources, cultural resources, and greenhouse gas emissions. We did receive 3 comment letters from Sacramento Metro Air Quality Management District, as well as SMUD and the Water Board. The comments from the Air District did result in some changes to the initial study, but all of that was included in the response to comments as an attachment to the staff report. Just to kind of touch on a couple of the impacts, a total of 107 trees were inventoried and evaluated on the site, 80 of which are protected by the Sacramento County Tree Ordinance. With the proposed development, 6 of those trees are proposed for removal and 101 trees are proposed to be retained. Next slide, please. The Design Review Advisory Committee met on May 28th of 2020 and recommended the Planning Commission find the project be found in compliance with the countywide design guidelines. On June 2nd of 2020, the Orangevale CPAC met and considered the project. They recommended that the Planning Commission deny the proposed project with a 6-1 vote. Subsequently, on July 7th of 2020, the Orangevale CPAC pre-authorized an appeal to the board should the item be approved by the Planning Commission tonight. And then on July 8th, the Agricultural Advisory Committee determined that the proposed project would not impact commercial agricultural operations. I just wanted to briefly touch on the concerns that were raised by the CPAC and by the community letters that were received. The biggest concern was neighborhood compatibility. So this congregate care facility within an AR2 zone and neighborhood. There were also concerns about the proposed access as well as traffic numbers. Flood control, noise, and safety were some other concerns that were raised. And those are also the same concerns that were raised in the comment letters received prior to this meeting as well. Next slide, please. Staff believes that the project is consistent with applicable county plans, including the general plan and Orangevale community plan. Although the project is requesting deviations from the zoning code development standards, staff recommends the general findings can be made to support the special development permit. With implementation of the mitigation measures identified in the initial study and mitigated negative declaration, impacts would be reduced to a less than significant level. The Design Review Advisory Committee recommended the project be found in substantial compliance with the design guidelines, and the project would be compatible with the surrounding existing land uses, as the subject parcel is located in an area predominantly consisting of a mix of rural single-family homes and religious institutions. So although the CPAC recommended denial of the project and the adjacent neighborhood concerns are noted, staff does recommend approval of this request and recommend the Planning Commission approve the project and take the actions that are on the screen. Subject to the findings and conditions, as it will provide a rural assisted living housing opportunity. And with that, I will conclude my report.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for staff?
Chair Shelby, this is Alan. I have one question for Kimber.
Sure, you go ahead.
Right. Good evening, Kimber. I did have a question. Looking at a letter that I think is the northern neighbor, Rick Ware. but it's dated back in June of 2020. Do you know, has an agreement been successfully made between the shared access? I know you have a condition in there, but I just want to know, has an agreement been successfully come about?
Sort of. So I believe where it ended up, and there was some discussion after the CPAC meeting, that the applicant did agree to provide an easement and to go into a shared access agreement with the north neighbor, but they were not going to do so until they obtained approval.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Okay, so I'll ask that question again to the applicant to make sure that there at least is a verbal commitment on both parties. Okay.
Yes, this is Lily. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we'll finish with the staff questions, then we'll
Oh, okay, sorry.
Questions after that. That's good.
Okay, that was my only question. Thanks, Kimber.
Any other questions for staff and commissioners?
This is Commissioner Rathel. I'm just curious on basically where the whole project looks like it's pushed to the eastern portion of the site, right along the road, which I understand there is a number of trees that are bisecting the parcel. Is there anything that is restrictive from the site on the west? I'm just curious about the orientation of the project and to go after the special development permit instead of complying with the conditions as stated and reorienting the building or using part of the western portion of the site. Maybe you could go into more details on that.
So can you rephrase your question? So you're asking if there could be accommodation on the western portion?
Is there anything that is preventing development on the western half of the site?
Oh, the western half. No, there is not anything prohibiting the development, but as you can kind of see, the topography of the western portion is a lot different than the eastern portion, and the site kind of slopes down into like a small gully where all the trees are at. So I think the intent was to try and not disturb the site as much as possible. So that is why the building is located on the eastern portion, but the applicant does not have any plans to develop the western portion, but there isn't anything prohibiting them from doing so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions for staff? Okay, if not, we'll bring the applicant forward. The other applicant up there on mute.
Yeah, this is Lily. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I
don't know if you have any. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Anything for
I'm
the
supposed
commission
to.
or yeah, you're free to speak now.
Yeah, I just want to address everyone that I know there's some opposition to us doing an elder care business in regards to, because it's an agricultural, lot. I've lived in Orangevale for 18 years, and I do live on a 4-acre property, and I just want to address that we're not in the middle of the neighborhood where it would impact everyone's big lots and animals and gardens and all that. We're actually on Hazel, which is a major street, almost like a highway, a big corridor. So I understand their concerns, but at the same time, I don't think that we are impacting any of the, like neighborhoods. We're actually on a major street next to a big church. Although they're concerned about traffic, the traffic is already there. This is going to be minimal. All the elderly are actually pretty much bedridden, where they just need care. and they will not be like in and out of the facility with their cars and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. And I think we had some questions for you.
Sure.
Mr. Hom, I think you had one first. You want to?
Thank you, Chair Shelby. Good evening, is Billy, right? If you can address my earlier question to staff regarding the access agreement with your neighbor to the north, which I believe is Rick Ware. Do you have an agreement, a successful agreement on should the commission move this forward, that there was no problem to the design for this easement or this joint access?
Well, yeah, we do have an agreement, and it's nothing in writing yet. We're working on that. I did agree to everything he asked for, to widen the road, to move the fence, to get a gate for him in the back, which would move the existing gate right now. So, yeah, we did agree to that. Unfortunately, I had like about 4 losses the end of year 2020, and he was a little bit impatient with us, but I told him just give us some time. I was going through some mourning, for my mom passed away and 3 other people close to me. So, but we are in agreement. We did agree with him. We talked about that, all the, the road maintenance and all that stuff. So, but it's nothing on hard paper right now.
Okay, so I understand your statement that just made that you do have a good faith agreement with Mr. Ware then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Rathel. One of the comments that was made that I thought was relevant from one of the neighbors is there is a substantial amount of commercial open space that's sitting empty. And obviously there is some resistance to developing a agricultural residential site with a facility like this. So did you look at other opportunities in Orangevale? And, looking at the Orangevale community plan, it looks like we'd focus commercial development along Main and Greenback. I know it sounds like you're very familiar with the community. I'm just curious why this site over other maybe vacant commercial sites that are available.
Well, we looked, this is close to where I'm at. Like I said, I've lived in Orangevale for 18 years, and I've only developed Orangevale since I've been here, built my own home on the 4-acre property. So I felt this lot was perfect because we are still considered a residential care facility, even though we got into, because of the size, I guess we got into a different building, numbers. But it's, as far as the state is concerned, we are residential, and the house that I'm building, it looks like an Italian villa as far as I'm concerned. We are going to have a garden in the back. We can have some animals in the back. So it's just looking like a big home. And like I said, traffic is not going to be impacted. It's already a lot of traffic, and it's going to be minimal. I have other boarding care in Orangevale. It's a 6-bed facility. All the neighbors are happy. I ended up taking care of my neighbor, which moved from across the street. Everybody was bringing in food at the holidays, and it was happy. So I don't think this particular site will we can have up to 15 beds, which is considered a residential care facility as far as licensing is concerned. I don't know if that answers your questions. I'm trying to do my best.
Yeah, and I'm trying to understand just the motivation behind it. Can you talk a little bit about one of the things that concerns me about it is I agree. I think you've done a great job on the architecture of the building, and it does look like a very large single-family residence. But one of the things that makes it not look like that is a very large parking lot that borders the east side of the property. So can you talk a little bit about why you decided to get rid of the landscape buffers and have basically the parking lot as right next to Hazel instead of reorienting it on the site to where maybe it's less obtrusive as you drive past?
Are you talking about the back side of the property?
No, right along Hazel Avenue, it looks like that's where the parking lot is located. And
yeah,
a lot of these. residential areas, the house is actually at the back of there. That it's significantly away from the main thoroughfare, but this one looks like, it's going to be, as you drive down Hazel, you're going to see the parking lot and you're going to see the large facility. So I think that may be where some of the opposition is coming from.
So to us, it looked like it was the best site for the building to be in the front, easy access, The parking lot, it's big because they required us to have that many spaces. I don't think we need that big of a parking lot, but that's what they required. I would have preferred not to be that big, but I kind of had no choice. We kind of go with what was required for us to do. And it just kind of continues with the parking lot from the church. The church has a parking lot in the front, so if you look at it that way, it kind of continues to ours. And we're gonna have the sidewalk in the front, and we're gonna do some nice landscaping with trees and everything. So, yeah.
Hi, this is Kimber. I just wanted to reiterate that the special development permit deviations, they are not deviating from the landscaping requirements for the frontage along Hazel. So the deviations are for the north and south property lines only. They are meeting our landscaping requirements and setbacks for the east property line shared with Hazel. So just wanted to make that clarification.
Thank you, Kimber. Yeah, I understand that. I think it's a function of the building size being forced onto that eastern portion of the lot. It just, looking at it, it looks a lot different than the other residential developments, which tend to be set back from Hazel.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Do you have any public comment for this item?
Yes, we do have one member of the public who is on hold, and if you could send the caller, please.
It's a dog quiet.
Hello, caller. You are now in the meeting. You'll have 2 minutes to make your comment, and you can feel free to get started.
Yes, this is Sharon Brunberg. I'm a longtime resident of Orangevale. We keep seeing projects like this, as well as larger projects than this, come to our AR2 zoning. It's very disheartening when somebody can use a use permit to develop property, and it's essentially the same as a rezone. Because a use permit is something that you would use for a while. There's use permits for a residential house for 6 beds. And presumably, sometime in the future, the use permit is revoked or terminated. It can revert back to its original use. In these cases, the AR2 zoning cannot be replaced. We've lost it with these large developments, and we cannot get it back. It is a profit motive to purchase these less expensive AR zone property versus commercial properties. And I appreciate the gentleman who mentioned why they didn't consider the commercial properties on Main Avenue. Probably because they're more expensive. The AR2 zone vacancy property that we have in Orangevale is trying to be snapped up for profit motive, and I think it leaves the residents and the community that will remain here in Orangevale to the detriment of these profiteers taking our property. Commercially zoned property should suffice for these types of developments, and we should not be using the last of our AR2 zoning. When we continue to lose that AR2 zoning, it's gone. The inventory's gone, and there's only not much left. I don't have the number in Orangevale, which is the community I live in. I know there's AR2 zoning throughout the county, but in our community, we want to keep it. And granted, somebody thinks that this might fit in the neighborhood for compatibility because it's on Hazel Avenue, but my opinion is we can have some AR2 zone parcels in that property and not have to do this piecemeal rezone for this type of permit.
Can you please wrap up your comment, caller?
I guess I'm done.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
I had 2 minutes.
Do you have any other public comments?
And that was the one and only commenter.
Okay. I guess we can close the public comment section. We can entertain thoughts from the commissioners or a motion.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Rathel. I'd just like to share my thoughts. I understand the design of it is meant to mesh as well as possible with the AR2 zoning, and I do appreciate that. But unfortunately, when I look at the community plan, I have a hard time making the finding that this is consistent with maintaining, basically preserving the large lot agricultural residential living. And I have a hard time making the finding that the development does not alter the rural character of the community, which is a requirement of the conditional use permit for that finding. So I understand where the CPAC is coming from. I appreciate the project and the applicant putting it forward, and also the preservation of some of that rural character on the western portion of the site. But I'm personally struggling with making the findings about the fact that it's not going to alter the rural character of the community. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that I see where the CPAC is struggling with the project also.
Okay. Any other
Chair Shelby?
comments from commissioners? Yes.
Chair Shelby, this is Bill Burke. I just wanted to make sure that you gave the applicant a chance to rebut public comment.
Oh,
I may have
okay.
missed that,
I did not. We can do that now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
The applicant?
Yes, I appreciate that. We've been for this project for about 3 years now, paid in a lot of money for it. I'm only doing something good for the community. I am not in the middle of the neighborhood, like the caller suggested on Main Avenue. Main Avenue is actually a 2-lane, and there's an existing big facility. I think it's like a 30-some bed facility, which is a very small street for that big a facility. And I'm trying to stay on the big highway where easy access for everyone, stay away from the neighborhood. I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to do something good for the community where there's a need for the elder care. Unless you're in the business, you don't know, but there's a lot of need of good homes and people to be cared for when they're at the end of their life. So I'm considering I'm doing something very good for the community. Like I said, I've been doing this for 15 years. I have a very good reputation with the state. All I've been doing is just improving and taking care of people, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm staying away from the neighborhood. I'm going on a major street. I'm trying to design, and I work with the designers for the big home, and I would like a chance to do that. Like I said, I'm not impacting anybody. I'm working with the neighbor. I am on a big street next to a church, and I really would like a chance to do that, and I appreciate it.
Good, thank you. All right, now we'll close the public comment section. Any other commissioners like to make a comment or a motion?
Chair Shelby, go ahead, Kara.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Chair Shelby, this is Alan. I'd say my comment is I appreciate and I take to heart the all the neighbors' comments about the rural nature of the community and maintaining that sense of environment. But if there is a place to locate a facility like this, it's right next, in my opinion, it consolidates it right next to an existing large, I'm going to say large non-rural facility, the church next door. I suppose if this were located, leapfrogged a little bit, I I probably would be more opposed to it. But at this point, being where it's located, and then the fact that the applicant does have an agreement with the neighbor to the north, I'm inclined to support this project.
Okay, Commissioner Martinson, I think.
Sure. Sorry, jumping in. I agree with my fellow commissioner. I think the findings can be made to issue the use permit, special development permit. I agree that it's a unique type of property because it's residential, yet it's a larger facility, and so I think the location is actually sort of the sweet spot in my opinion. And I would be inclined to support the staff recommendation.
So if you have any other comments. Only thing I would say is I agree with the comments from Commissioner Hom and Commissioner Martinson. So I agree. I don't hear any other comments. I'll move to accept staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioners Hom,
Yes.
Martinson,
Yes.
Rathel,
No.
Tatishi,
Yes.
and Chair Shelby.
Yes.
And the motion passes to move staff recommendations. And item number 4 is the Planning Director's report.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is Chris Bahuli. It sounds like we have a little bit of an echo. Chris Bahuli, Principal Planner. I do not have a Planning Director's report for you this evening. We do have a number of items that you have heard that are going to the board in early and late March, but we will have another Planning Commission meeting before those items go, and I'll provide a more detailed report at your March Planning Commission meeting.
Okay. And then we have, I guess we always do 4 and 5 together, almost.
Yeah, not much of a...
We have meetings coming up the next few cycles in March. Okay.
We do. I think we briefly touched on that at your last Planning Commission meeting when we did the housing presentation, that we have a affordable housing project coming up. So that will be at your next meeting. And yes, we have items lining up for the next few meetings as well. So yes.
Good. Do you have any public comments?
No, sir, there are no public comments.
All right. So if that's the case, we'll call meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.